That song has the sound of the early 80s, Al Jarreau. That's not him, but it does kind of sound like it. Anyway, tropical weather as usual here in our part of Texas. And let's take a look out at the tropics where we have Tropical Storm Isaias, which is over the Dominican Republic there. 50-knot winds, 1003 millibar pressure, which is indicative of kind of a weaker storm at this time. And there's our forecast track taking it all the way up to Florida as a tropical storm. And they have shifted that track eastward in line with the GFS. Now, yesterday, the consensus solutions, the UK met, and the deterministic GFS was bringing it into western Florida. But it looks like the spread of solutions from the GFS ensembles have won out, and that puts the track of the storm on the east coast. So I'm not going to argue with this track. My specialty is severe convective forecasting, not so much tropical cyclone forecasting, and I think it's important to recognize where your strengths and weaknesses are. So I'm going to defer this to NHC and the dynamical hurricane models. So, yeah, east coast of Florida for now. One noteworthy thing going on right now is insane heat in Iraq and some of the surrounding areas. This is a map from about 12Z. This is about 7 hours ago, and we can see 126 at Nasiriyah. Baghdad is located right there. They're at 120 right now, and I see 126 at I think that's just across the border in Iran from Basra, or that might be Basra itself. And 124 in Kuwait, 124 here in fact, let's just draw a circle around all the 120s. Yeah, anybody want to go there for summer break? I forgot this one too, another 120. And the heat extending all the way up to Turkey with 109 up there, and then it looks like we drop off into 90s in the interior region. This heat wave has been going on for a while, and this is 2 days ago. Baghdad actually reached 125. That was probably an hour either way of this observation time. But you can see that Wikipedia already updated this. The record high, 125. That's an all-time high at Baghdad, reached on the 28th. And this kind of heat, it's not exactly uncommon. High 110s are common. Close to 120 is common. In fact, this area right here gets it particularly bad. 120s happen there just about every year. But you can see the 77-degree dew point. Some of those 70s dew points do reach inland as the heat low picks up a southeasterly flow off the Gulf, and that results in some very, very high heat indexes. And there's some speculation maybe in about 20 or 30 years with climate change, and when you're starting to talk about 110, 120 degree readings with a 70, 80 degree dew point, those are wet bulb readings that are not survivable without air conditioning. So there's speculation out there that those regions may become gradually uninhabitable. Except, of course, if you have a reliable energy supply. Anyway, that's a discussion for another time. Let's see what's happening here in the U.S. The current readings in Death Valley, Furnace Creek, 120 degrees, 121 yesterday. Well, Death Valley, you're going to have to try a little bit harder than that. Let's take a look at the past 24 hours of radar. You can see a lot of activity there in the southeastern U.S. Air mass type storms. We've also got a very active sea breeze. Again, remember this is last night. Down in Houston, sea breeze activity, and then we've got this Bear Clinic system in the Kansas City area. So we'll roll that forward. And there's the progression of stuff overnight and then into this morning, and that puts us about right there. So pretty active in the Ohio River region right there. And then on the back edge of that front in Kansas, a lot of frontal type activity. And then the southeast, of course, getting active, and we should see this area here in the south light up this afternoon. But we're pretty early in the convective day. One thing that you notice is the southwestern U.S., and I'll run this one more time, you can see that the monsoon has really backed off. In fact, we've got a little bit of a northerly flow there, and that's probably displacing some of the moisture. And that begs the question, where do we stand with this subtropical ridge? That's something we definitely need to be looking at in July. So returning to that, let's see, 200 millibar chart, that's perfect for this. And what we're looking at is the wind plots, these wind pennants, feathers, whatever you want to call them. And those paint out kind of an anticyclonic flow. So we can see for sure that the anticyclonic subtropical high is centered on Alabama. And looks like another center just west of Baja California. So yeah, we're sweeping out Arizona, New Mexico with strong northerly flow, and that's going to have an effect on the monsoon moisture. Also, we can see a trough moving across the Texas Panhandle there. Boy, you know, this is frontal. This is part of the prevailing westerlies. Kind of a mild jet axis right there. So, returning back to the basics. Ridge and trough. Front right in that area. Yeah, we're kind of getting a jump on winter forecasting. So, yeah, that's going to define where your front is right there. And back in behind it to the upstream ridge, we can assume that there's pressure rises at the surface, high pressure. So that's something we might look for on the surface chart, maybe some indication of anticyclogenesis in Colorado. And definitely in the northeastern U.S., some troughing. Upstream ridge well off the chart, so that would connect in probably with that Great Plains system there. So nothing in this pattern screams heat wave except maybe for Alabama. Yeah, they're under the subtropical ridge. And then the easterly flow, that's confined to the Gulf Mexico region right there. And then, of course, one wild card we might have to watch out for is this cyclonic feature right here. This is a tropical disturbance out around the Monterey area. Let's just run the GFS ahead a little bit and see what happens to that. A westward drift into the Durango area, about like what we would expect. Looks like we do have some deepening of that trough across Texas, some building of the ridge. So this is an amplification of the pattern. And you can see that the anticyclone we had over Alabama is pushed to the southeast. So this whole area coming in under southwesterly flow. So yeah, we're opening up some westerlies into Texas and Arkansas, Louisiana, and very deep northwest flow there. Looks like the subtropical high will be centered on Southern California and Arizona after the weekend, and yeah, we're getting into kind of an active late season pattern here. This is like more of an early fall type thing going on. And then just a quick look ahead to next week. Looking for the return of that subtropical high, and there it is. Yeah, see, parking itself over Arizona. So we're going to see the heat return with a vengeance, probably in about a week and a half to 2 weeks. Southwestern U.S. at this hour looking like that right there. Pretty clear. And you can see a prominent absence of towering cumulus on the mountains, just some specks there south of Albuquerque. And the region in the high plains dominated by this frontal system with northerly flow coming down from places like Akron, Garden City, North Platte, Salina, bring in some slightly more mild air and a little bit more humid conditions south into the Oklahoma and Kansas region. And there's the early afternoon surface map there showing that cold front entering northern Oklahoma and the Panhandles, and we got winds coming out of the north at 15 at Amarillo. No sign of the dry line. So we still got a little bit of that monsoon pattern in effect. There was some residual moisture in the southern valleys of New Mexico, and that's brought dew points up into the 40s, but it is still kind of backed off from what we had a few days ago. And you can see that Las Vegas right there, 20-degree dew point, and 15 at Tonopah, so it has really dried off in the high deserts. The northwestern U.S., a lot of warm weather, 86 to 90 degrees around places like Kennewick and Spokane. And up to the north, we've got a new cold front coming out of Alberta. Here comes some cold air being generated in northern Alberta and the Northwest Territories, so temperatures are down into the 70s in that region. Now, there is some moisture on the high plains. We can see an axis of 60s-degree dew points all the way up into Saskatchewan, and even a 70 right there. So I might be looking for a chance of thunderstorms close to that front. This would probably be a good place to chase if you were north of the border there. And as you go to the west, it looks a little bit maybe like a faint dry line pattern, kind of right in there. Maybe a dry line right from about Williston down to maybe Pierre. So yeah, with that convergence there, I don't know what the upper levels are doing, but on the surface, that would be a favorable pattern, especially with that backflow right there. However, looking at the satellite, not very much low cloud, so it looks like that moisture is not very deep. Well, we can see some thunderstorms going up in Montana where dew points are in the 40s and 50s, so those are going to be a little bit high-based. But out to the west, looks like we got a upper-level disturbance working across the northern Rockies. So that could factor into weather on the high plains for tomorrow. And in the northeast U.S., we can see the cold air advection machine is still in full force in Quebec and eastern Ontario. If this was winter, I would expect they'd probably be having some snow and some very cold temperatures, but it's summer, so they're getting cumulus towers and some very cool weather. Down to the south, it looks like a sign of a barotropic system there. You can see that very extensive cloud shield across Indiana and Ohio. So that would indicate probably a barotropic low somewhere off in Illinois. Frontal system out to the west there. And then we'll take a look at the surface map. We can see mostly cloudy up there in Ontario and Quebec. And as we go further south, the temperatures come up and we're looking at 90s in Maryland. Places like Hebron, where one of our viewers, Brian Lowe, is. And we'll just take a quick look at his area. We can see that that region is under a weak south flow. We've got 90 over 70, so we're pretty much right in the tropical air. And this would be a good time to take a look at a high-resolution rapid refresh sounding. And we'll pull up a forecast sounding for Hebron. There's what it looks like there. The problem is lots of dry air up above the lowest layers, and that really takes off at about 3,000 to 4,000 feet. Above that, you rapidly diminish from 50s and 60s degrees dew points down to 20s and teens. So the more heating you get of the air mass, the more you involve dry air at the surface. So that makes it pretty hard for parcels to get going. As you heat up, you dry out. And even though it's uncapped, convection is still a problem. Now, if storms do get going, you've got a little bit of weak support, a little bit of shear. Your bulk shears are about 30 to 40 knots there, and that'll give you a few long-lived storms, but you will see splitting of the cells, and they would tend to break up into clusters. Looks like we'll see a little bit of organization of those cells in West Virginia and the mountains of Virginia. This evening, they move out into Maryland towards midnight. A lot of the clusters remain up there near Baltimore and Philadelphia with only a few stragglers in the Chesapeake Bay region. And the southeastern U.S., not much going on at the moment, really. Tropical air mass pretty much everywhere from Texas to the Carolinas. And the highest dew points are found a couple of areas. South Carolina, 76, 77, and then across northern Louisiana and southern Arkansas, again, 76, 77. So onshore flow in Texas, and then a little bit oblique to the coast there in northern Florida. Still pretty early in the convective day right now, but we can see the front up to the north there, and what looks like maybe an outflow boundary from about Memphis down to El Dorado, Arkansas. The deeper moisture, that's definitely evident in the Carolinas. So I would expect to see some widespread storms in that area. And it looks to me like maybe there's been a little bit of subsidence working across Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. And we did see on the 200 millibar chart that anticyclone over Alabama. So we'll take a look at a sounding across Mississippi for mid-afternoon there. And we see that there is a lot of mid-level moisture. Not enough to shut down convection, though. Looks like our mixed layer CAPE is around 2,000. I think that's the number we really need to use. And some very deep moisture in the low levels, so we should have a little bit of ingredient there for storms. But the high-resolution rapid refresh shows not very extensive. Looks like it's mostly focused along that trailing edge outflow boundary thing, and not really any activity north or south of that boundary. All right, it appears we're at about 18 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the weathercast. I appreciate you all watching, and we'll see you all tomorrow on Friday. Have a good one. Bye-bye.